Welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast, where business leaders come to share their advice and journeys to success with existing and emerging leaders of America. Now, here's your host, Dylan Bloyd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by Bianca D'Alessio, a top-ranked real estate broker in New York City and the founder of the Masters Division at Nest Seekers International. Bianca manages a $10 billion real estate portfolio and has overseen sellouts of over 80 new development projects across New York City, the Hamptons, Westchester, and international markets. From earning just $11,000 in her first year to leading one of the top producing luxury real estate teams in the world, Bianca's journey is a masterclass in resilience, international leadership, and strategic decision-making. She also stars as on HBO Max's Selling the Hamptons and is the best-selling author of Mastering Intentions, a guide on aligning purpose, action, and results for lasting impact. Welcome to the show, Bianca.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yes, I'm excited to have you on as well. Been really excited to get this going. So, early in your career, you faced significant personal, financial, and professional challenges. You even earned just $11,000 your first year of your real estate career. So what kept you going during those early struggles, and how did those experiences shape your resilience and the way you approach business today?
So, yes, my first year in real estate was not profitable. But I learned a lot of lessons about myself of, staying power,
Yeah,
sticking with it, being long-term focused, and just the importance of how long it takes to cultivate skills of when you enter a new industry. And so there were a lot of times during that first year of wanting to give up or doubting myself or questioning my ability. But it was at the end of that year, I was like, I realized that the biggest gap in where I was and where I wanted to go was in my confidence.
yeah.
And that is what was holding me back. And so I knew that I needed to work on that skill set first, the
Mm,
knowledge of the industry. And I think this applies for a lot of industries. Like it will come. You can learn all of that. You can learn how to sell. You can learn about products. You can learn about neighborhoods. You can learn about homes. You can learn about construction materials. But what you really need to focus on is how do you build the skill set that you need to be confident in your ability to perform in a new market or in a new industry. And so that's what I started focusing on. How
mm.
do I build my confidence? Everyone kept telling me, like, fake it till you make it, fake it till you
Yeah,
make it. And for me, that just felt so inauthentic.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to fake it. I don't want to be someone I'm not. So I started reframing that of be it until you are it.
Right.
Like trying to show up and being curious and wanting to learn and operating with integrity and curiosity and like owning when I was going to meetings of like, I don't have all of the answers. I do not
Hmm.
know. I am newer in my career, but what I can do and what I can promise you, and falling back on the things that I knew I could deliver on. Like, I know I will be relentless. I know I will always show up. I know that I will work harder than anyone because I have something to prove. And once I started leaning into the skill sets that I knew that I had, I started building the confidence for me to be able to perform in the arena. So
Yeah.
that was really what I needed to shift my mindset in that first year of real estate.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to do this a lot, referring back to your book. I won't try and give too much away, but there was one part in there that you talked about decisiveness and how you did. There was a conversation you had with someone who you made a decision. You were so, confident in that decision. He's like, even if you're not right, I'm still going to believe you. So can you talk a little bit about that? And it's kind of in part with what you were just said.
Yeah, I think once you develop the skill of confidence, it's not just about in your industry, but it's like it was a confidence within myself,
Mm,
of like knowing to trust my gut, knowing that if I put my mind to something, I was going to achieve it. Once you start showing up with that level of confidence, people want to believe what you're going to say.
yeah.
They know that you're going to deliver on it. And it's not then just speaking those words into existence, but then it's actually delivering on the result. When you start to develop that pattern of behavior of like you speak something, you say something, and then you deliver on it, people develop a trust with you. And I didn't even realize, that was a photographer that I had worked with
Yes.
all the time who had said that to me. I was like, God, that really took me back of like, I couldn't at that point in time identify what was different about me because it was earlier in my career.
Yeah.
That was different about me and my competitor. But like him just simplifying it into that one sentence, I was like, wow, you are right.
Yeah.
Like when I come in with a strategy or solution or a game plan, like I come in like I have a plan.
Yeah.
And then when I have the plan, I stick to it and I keep showing up. And then even when I know that, maybe things went off the tracks a little bit and maybe something's wrong, like I come up with a new plan.
Right.
So it's like that level of decisiveness of like, I'm going to try everything and put like my heart and my soul and my body and my force and my resources behind it in order to make it happen. Um, that's how you're really able to manifest that confidence.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I'm excited to get into this and speak more about manifestation and things in your intentionality, later in the episode. But thank you for touching on that. I did want to talk about how you now overseen over 80 new development projects and manage a $10 billion portfolio, which is incredible.
Thank
How do
you.
you how do you approach projects of that scale differently today compared to when you first started?
So, gosh, that's a great question. When I first started, first of all, I was targeting projects differently,
Mm,
and wherein how I really gained my traction in the industry was coming in from projects that were stalled and that were lagging, and coming up with a creative solution to reposition them based on what hadn't worked in the past.
mm,
And that was almost easier because it was like, okay, the past team or the prior brokers or the prior sales team or developers had tried this and this and this and it had failed. And this was why. Now a lot of my business starts from the ground up.
yeah.
And so like there isn't something in the past to fall back on. It's like, what is the new strategy moving forward where it's a clean slate, nothing ever
Mm,
exists. And so where I default back to a lot of times is using the data and the science that's informing the numbers, but then pairing that with the human component of sales and the marketing strategy. And it almost operates in this triangle of how do we make sure that our strategy remains, well-rounded,
mhm.
where we're touching on all those components. We're not ignoring data and science. We're creating and bringing in a human element, which is the storytelling of it.
Yeah.
And then we're using the psychology and the behavior of what else are buyers seeing and what is their experience to make sure that their story is resonating with them.
Mm,
And that's how we're able to really differentiate and stand apart in the market is by making sure not one of those ever lags behind. They all need to be working in tandem at the same time.
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see how much you've accomplished in that, industry. When you first started out, everyone believes, I'm sure, that they're going to be the best salesman, they're going to just become this incredible, real estate agent, but you have, right? So, did you
I,
see that
I didn't
happening?
believe that.
You didn't. No.
No.
Really?
I think, first of all, the journey of confidence is like
Yeah.
ever evolving.
Yeah.
Um, so like, no, year one, terrible. Year two, figuring it out. Year three, I start to find my niche in the industry and which is new development.
Yeah.
And I start leaning into that. But as I'm leaning into that, you start to realize like other parts of the business fail. And like
Mm,
start to realize like you're giving up on working with individual buyers or individual sellers. And like, how do you reprogram your brain to be like, it's okay to let go of some business
yeah.
while you make room for other business. But that is like a growth process all on its own.
Hmm.
Then year four, gosh, it wasn't year four. It's probably somewhere like five, six, COVID happens. And I
Yeah.
lost all my business
Oh.
and I had to enter a new market. And then after COVID, I start to rebuild and I have a failed business partnership. So like now here, where am I? Like I thought like I had jumped all in with partners and we were going to start something new and it's going to be exciting. And it was great for a year. And then it ended horrifically bad.
Yeah.
I was forced to start from square one. Literally, I
Yeah.
was forced to start from square one. And it wasn't until that point in time, I had always done leadership things, but I had never seen myself as a CEO or an entrepreneur or the person who could lead a force. I
Hmm.
was forced into it because I had no other alternative or option. And I needed my business to keep going on and I could not let it fail. And
Mm,
that's when I started my company. And that was 4 years ago.
yeah. So,
So I didn't set out to be number one or the best. I just wanted to be really good at what I did and had fun doing it. And I still do that. Uh,
hmm.
if I get to have all of these rankings and, this recognition for the business I've built on top of it, that's
Yeah.
great. But like the most important things to me is like that I love what I do and I have so
Hmm.
much fun doing it and I enjoy the people that I get to work with every single day. If all of
Yeah.
that happens, like I'm doing the best thing possible.
Yeah. Right. You're winning in life, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, you. talk about a lot in your book about like learning from your failures, right? And that's exactly what you did. But you could have pivoted and went a different direction with something else, but instead you buckled down and you made this something far bigger than again that you even thought was going to happen. So, but your book is also built on the idea of intentionality builds empires, right? So, how is intentionality different from simply setting ambitious goals?
So I think, what's important about intentionality is the ability to pivot and shift and be agile,
Yeah.
but also to focus on the process.
Hmm.
I think focusing on the goal is becomes very linear. And I have had my own struggles with setting, I call them metric specific toxic goals in the book,
Hmm.
where like, if my goal was to become the number one real estate broker, like, I think the path would have looked a lot different
Yeah.
than to build a great business based on integrity and leadership and values-based recruiting and having fun and building community within my team. Like, it would have taken on a very different trajectory. And I think my leadership style would have been different. The way that I showed up every day would have been different. The culture in my office would have been different.
Yeah.
And so, I think like, yes, it's one thing to have like an insight and a vision for where you want to go. Like you need to steer the ship in some direction.
Hmm.
But I think it's very much, when you operate from like within of like what are my values, what am I looking for, what kind of life do I want to lead, that becomes a much more holistic approach
Hmm.
for how do I move forward with intention versus how do I just seek one singular thing, where then sometimes like other things can get compromised along the way.
Right, right. Well, one of your practices is future casting, right?
Mhm.
So anticipating life's moments and acting today with those in mind. How do you use future casting personally, and how should leaders apply it to their decision making?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I talked to a lot of other business owners about how long it actually takes to get
Yes.
to that point in time of like, wow, I've made it, or like you reach that next threshold or benchmark. And when I started my business, like I was very, very clear. Like I knew in the first 2 years, well, I made the decision for me. In the first 2 years, I'm going to pour every dollar that I personally make back into the business and back into self-development for myself.
Mm.
So, hiring the public speaking coach and the brand coach and this coach,
Yes.
learn, just purely learn to become better. And I'm so happy I did that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
then like recognize like this has been for me, like this is compounding 10 years over time.
Hmm.
Um, but like, what are these periods in time of like, I need to be all in and I need to compromise and sacrifice other things in my life in order to give back to this? And what is the trade-off that I'm making? And so I had this very like honest conversation with myself,
Yeah.
and I had it with my family of like, over the next 18 months, you will not see me except for like the most important family events.
Mm.
But like it's going to shift a little bit because I need and I know that I want to do this. And then I had the same conversation with my friends.
Yeah.
Like, yes, major life moments, I will be there, but like Friday night dinners and, happy hours, I cannot be there for this
Yeah.
period of time. Like, I need to focus on building this. And um, I think like having that recognition then was very important. That like it really was 3 years of like I was able to experience hyper growth
Hmm.
a lot because like I look at like what was the hours put in and what was gotten out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to do this, but like working 20 hours a day, which I was doing at that period of time, again, not healthy and I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
We could go into a whole other conversation of like, the isolation you experience of growing a business and, sleep patterns and difficulty and managing diet and exercise and how all of that starts to compromise and be sacrificed. But, you know, I look at all of that, like I got to have yeah, it was, 2 years, 3 years of doing that. But
Hmm.
like the actual quantity of work was like when you look at like time put in during the day, 7 days a week, it's like 6 or 7 years if
Yeah.
you're comparing it to like normal work hours.
Yeah.
So like when you start to think and shift about it that way, it's like, okay, I'm going to make that mental shift. Where I am in my business now is how do I look at it in a 5 year increment? I'm planning for a 50-year horizon of what will the business look like 50 years from now?
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to do in the next 5 years to make sure I set myself up? And it looks a little bit different now because, like, where I sit today, my grandparents are older. My parents are in a different life place. My siblings are starting their family, like priority shift. So
Hmm.
like we once said, I'm not going to do these things. Now I'm going to say, I will make sure that I'm at these major life moments because like having the regret of not being there for the people who are the most important to me at this
Yeah.
point in time, like that's more important. But again, like that is a trade-off and that is a sacrifice and being very realistic, but also getting your team on board with these are my values and this is my position for where I am today and communicating that and then helping people also realize like where they want to be. What does that look like with your friendships? What does that look like with your partnerships? What does that look like for your family members? Because you don't want to look back and have a regret that it wasn't an intentional decision,
Yeah.
that you made the choice of this is what I'm doing today. This is the reason it is I'm doing it. This is the time period I'm allowing myself or giving myself that either grace or buckling down. And this is why.
Right.
So
Yeah, it seems pretty common in the industry, right? Because I think even in the second season, Michael, your coworker, goes through something similar, right? Where he has to make a decision. And so, work hard now so you can relax later, but at the same time, like you said, you got to give yourself a time frame. But I mean, it can really affect your personal life, right? But if you want to be successful, you have to do these things.
definitely. Like there is no other alternative, people, and I get this like talk about work-life balance or
Yeah.
this. And my family used to give me a lot of slack of like, because I would say I don't believe in balance. I
Mm.
just don't. It is life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You don't get to leave the office and then like check it at the door and then go to your family and check that at the door when you show up to the office again. Like it all becomes the cycle of life. You
Hmm.
can't leave your problems at home and expect it's not going to impact the way that you show up in your conversations, your relationships with your colleagues. Like how do you or like take time off and then people talk about like Sunday scaries, like having to go back to work, like like if you start to create these divisions in life where you're just not happy where you're showing up, like that's where you start to build resentment, frustration, anger, disappointment versus looking at it as like all of this becomes part of the life journey and the life process. And there's sometimes work's going to be hard,
Yeah.
sometimes work's going to be fun, and the same for my personal life will sometimes be really hard, sometimes will be periods of fun. But
Hmm.
how do you not like leave and show up and leave and show up, but instead just look at like being present in all components?
Hmm.
um, and how do you develop that as a practice and as a skill so you don't keep having this switch in your brain that has to go on and off?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you because there's highs and lows in everything that we do, right? And so it's how we adapt. But at the same time, I don't believe there's a balance either. I think it's just that you kind of have to ride the waves of when you're really focusing on work versus really focusing on family. But as long as you're spending enough time with both and giving enough attention to both is basically
Yep.
the goal, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I did want to talk a little bit more about selling the Hamptons, because you were incredibly vulnerable on the show, especially the first season, sharing personal struggles on camera. You even mentioned that being a turning point for you in your book. Many leaders worry that showing vulnerability might weaken their authority. How do you balance authenticity and maintaining confidence and control?
So, what I have found for me is that literally all of my relationships have strengthened once I have shifted my mindset around vulnerability.
Mm.
Think about when I started my business 4 years ago, which was just about, it was before season one had come out, but I think the shift was I wasn't as confident as who I was as a business person when I had started my
Yeah.
company naturally. And so I was leading from this position of like stoicism and strength and perfectionism. And what didn't realize at the time was that I was coming across so strong and inhumane and mechanical
Mm.
that yeah, like it was like, wow, it's amazing. How does she get it all done? But I
Yeah.
also did create an environment where people wanted to come to me and ask me questions, or people were afraid of making mistakes, or they couldn't have a personal conversation with me of like, I think I need time off, or my family's going through this, or I need this, or like there was no asks or wants. And from the failure perspective of people being afraid to fail or come to me, one, people weren't taking risks. Um, and so like we were just like flattening out. and I was dampening creativity because people weren't trying or, thinking outside of the box. They were just like, okay, I know this works. I know this is what she likes. Go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And once I started to like shift of like, listen, mental health is a very real struggle. And there started to be a few people who were working with me who were dealing with some mental health concerns. And it wasn't until I approached them of like, hey, I'm starting to see these things and I want to check on you and make sure you're okay, that they felt like they could talk to me and like that they could talk about their family and they could bring it into the professional space. And then I started to realize like, wow, I understand you more now as a person because it's all connected.
Hmm.
And so I think those conversations are very important, but I do think that it's also setting the professional boundaries of like when we're at work, we have to make sure that the work gets done. We can operate with compassion and kindness, but the work has to get done. And like there doesn't need to be the division of home and like how do you create a space where like people's families feel part of their growth journey and that their growth journey in the professional space gets brought home to their relationships, their kids, their parents, because again, that's how you start to blur those lines of, you know, home life, homework, life balance, all of that. Like
Right.
you all make the synergy align in one. But it was definitely like, I can't say it was an easy process. It took a lot of trial and error of figuring out like what is the right balance of too personal, not personal enough, socializing with the people who work for me, not socializing, admitting vulnerability and being vulnerable and being, transparent and honest and, voicing my own uh, failures and mistakes. And I think that was another thing of, during that journey and process, what I started to realize is like, how do I not make it I don't have to come into the office and unload all of my personal baggage and drama. Like
Yeah.
that's not what it should be. But how do I now, when I go into a meeting and I have my team sitting next to me and we're with a client and I say something I shouldn't have said, or I make a mistake, how do I then take it back to the internal team and use that as a moment of opportunity for growth?
Yeah.
Of like how do and like starting with me of like, hey, I just wanted to debrief that meeting. How did everyone think that they did? Great. Well, I wanted to bring up something like, I wish I did this differently.
Hmm.
And if I could go back to that moment in time, this is how I would have rephrased that. This is
Yeah.
what I would have changed. And encouraging people to start to think about their own behavior of that too, of like, if I'm willing to admit where I did something maybe I wish I had done differently, that becomes how we grow together. And
Hmm.
it creates a safe space for everyone to lean into that as well.
Right. Yeah. You're humanizing yourself, right? And making it more relatable for them to be able to be like, okay, we have those same issues, and that's a very important part in your book that you talk about as well is knowing your people's people. So understanding everything they have going on outside of their life because you can't leave it at the door. I've worked in places where they say you need to leave it at the door. It's not going to happen. They're going to be dwelling on the situations that might be happening at home. And so I
Yeah.
love that you're doing that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think like when you could find your people in work too, like it may not always be like of course, there's some structure within the workplace, but like if you feel that you have friends or people
Hmm.
that you can, confide in your office, like that's why I'm such a big believer in people working from an office,
Yeah.
not from home.
Right. Right.
Because, like it's important to have people that are like not your family, not your friends, but like other companions in your life that you can bounce ideas off of
Hmm.
or like talk through what else is going on just to get different perspectives. That's what challenges and shapes and shifts your mind.
Yes, exactly. I mean, especially people who are experts in the industry that you work in, right? So, I mean, you guys are only going to elevate each other. Trying to speak with that with your family and your friends, they're just going to be listening to you, right?
For sure,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But with so much on your plate, managing billions, leading your team, speaking, writing, and starring on TV, how do you maintain clarity and energy yourself? And what daily rituals or systems help you stay intentional, aligned with your high pressure environments?
So, the like few things that I do like religiously every single day, positive self-talk is so crucial for me. Like I wake up in the morning, I am my number one woman. Like
Yeah.
I'm my cheerleader. I talk to myself in the mirror. I get my music going. I'm dancing. Like I know my morning routine of what I need to do to amp me up.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, a very important thing for me is practicing gratitude. So like leaning into and using that as a mindset shift of like being grateful for an experience, being grateful for an opportunity, being grateful for a conversation, and taking the time to reflect on that every single day.
Mm.
I role play a lot of conversations in my head before I actually have them,
Yeah.
both with clients, both with family, both with friends, with everyone of like, how do I want to show up in this? How will I respond if this happens? And whether or not the conversation or the situation goes in a different direction, like that starts to practice and give the confidence of like, I know that I could pivot. I know that I could change. Like I've worked on my speech and my body language when it comes to that situation. But then, like, how do I experience gratitude for, like, oh, the different takeaways I could have had from each of those experience as they're coming?
Mm-hmm.
That's really, those are two that, like, that are constantly I'm working on every day,
Right.
as well as, I think having a winner's mindset
Yeah.
is very important.
Yes.
Um, and what the winner's mindset is like having this inherent trust in yourself that you've built over time, that no matter what moment of hardship or difficult situation you're put into, like you will ultimately win.
Mm.
It doesn't mean you won't fail in the process, and failing's not a bad word, and
Right.
changing your relationship with failure. Um, Even though you may have missteps along the way, like ultimately you will become a winner of that situation. It's all based on how you are using the metric of what the win was for how you're evaluating what that looks like.
Mm.
And so those are a few things that like I'm shifting and practicing every single day, especially when it gets really loud and noisy.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things going on where it's like, oh gosh, I wish I gave that more of my effort, or, I was more present in that situation or this or that. It's like, it's okay. I am human, and like, I will just continue to be true to myself to always work to try to become better.
Hmm. Right. And it all starts in the morning, like you said, right? Because you
Oh,
talk
yes.
about, especially in the industry that you work in, where you're going to deal with an unhappy client or something. But you even, this really made me laugh in the book, but you said that even on days that you wake up a little bit tired, you wake up and you just start singing a musical. And I was like, I got to see if this is true.
Oh, yeah, like Saturdays and Sundays in my office are my favorite.
Yeah.
I have like two, okay, three. Les Mis is like my favorite musical ever. Evita is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And like I'm really big on Wicked right now.
Mm.
And like I listen to those soundtracks and sing at the top of my lungs. Like I think I'm Madonna
Right.
sometimes. Trust me if you heard me, I am not. But like that, I love that. Like that's
Yes.
such a practice for me.
Yeah.
That is so not going to be for everyone else. Like
Right. Of course.
that's what works for me. And so like I lean all in on that.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. Well, whatever your thing is, set the tone for the day, right? So
Yes.
everything's different, but that's your thing. I love
Yeah,
that.
totally.
Well, Bianca, this has been amazing. I did want to ask, for listeners who want to learn more about you, the Master's Division, or your book, Mastering Intentions, where's the best place for them to connect with you and stay updated on your work? Yes.
They can find the book on any place that sells books. Most notably, Amazon is very easy.
Mm.
But I'm very, very active on social media. You could find me on Instagram far too often and on LinkedIn. Or you could visit me on my website to get more tools and, connections and resources and events and all of the other things. And that's biancadalessio.com.
Perfect. Yeah, I do have to say this, anyone who is looking to read this book, it is truly like a manifesto of how to live a fulfilled life. It is not just about what to do, it's how to do it. And you give lessons throughout the book, all the way through. It's not just about your life. You're relating everything that you do, telling them how you conquered the issues, but then how they can do it as well. And I love that so much because a lot of these business books, out there are just fluff, filled with fluff and just kind of repeating what other people say. This was definitely one of my favorite books.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I love this
Absolutely.
conversation so much.
Yes.
It's amazing today.
Yes. Thank you. So I do have one more question. I always like to end the podcast with some advice for the entrepreneurs out there. So what's one key piece of advice you'd give to entrepreneurs who want to grow their business and lead more intentionally?
Just keep moving forward. Even the best and most impressive business owners that I have met did not have all of the answers or did not have it figured out. Not when they started and not today. They're just simply making the best decisions with the information in front of them. And they just keep moving and they pivot when something doesn't feel right or when something's not working. And so trust in your gut, get started today, take risks, be really risky, but trust in yourself and have the confidence that you are going to succeed. Because if you get your mindset right first, like the rest will follow.
I love that so much, Bianca. Well, thank you again so much for joining us today and spending time with me and the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to see you soon.